What are the impacts of Jack and Jill competitions or any dance competitions into your social dancing and the dance community? Well, let's find out. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Zouk Nerds. In this episode, join Guy and I as we discuss the impacts that Jack and Jill dancing and all the competitions have had in our dance, as well as in our students and the communities that we're involved. We do believe that there is a space for every kind of activity, including competitions, in our dance community. But is it right for you? So, let's go. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode. My name is Alisson Sandi, and we have our beautiful co-host here once again. Hello, Guy Prada.
Hello, Alisson. Hello, everybody, and welcome back.
Welcome back, everybody. And in today's episode, we are going to be diving on another hot topic that never stops to surprise us and to engage us in multiple conversations, whether it's in our group or in the social medias out there, which is Jack and Jill competitions. And the premise that we want to talk about in this episode is very much something that we hear a lot, which is dance competitions does not define you as a dancer. That is, whether it's a choreography competition, a social dancing competition, or any sort of competition. But we're going to deep dive into this and explain why we believe that. But also we're going to be talking about why we believe that Jack and Jill can be beneficial for some people in the right mindset. So Guy, what has been your experience with Jack and Jill?
My experience with Jack and Jill first started as being something that I denied. I didn't want to do it. I didn't like it. Didn't like the idea at all. Super not a fan. Over time, I was convinced to go ahead and try it, mostly because it was something that was starting to become bigger here in the United States. And our students were going to, at some point, start competing. And the argument that was used to convince me to go to Jack and Jill was our students will want to know how it feels like. And you doing it, you're going to be able to give firsthand account of how it is to compete. So then I started doing it. And at the time, I competed as an intermediate. In total, I did 5 competitions as intermediate and I think 3 as advanced. And experience during intermediate times was actually really fun. I started enjoying it. And I noticed that I was being able to be rewarded with winning, with all the good things that rewards bring, with the dance that I had. And the feeling was nice. I was like, oh, okay, so I can do what I do, and that works for this occasion right here. Once I became advanced, things changed. Things changed a lot, and mostly changed in my mind. And after competing for the 3rd time in advanced, I decided to stop doing Jack and Jills because I realized that it was not being good for me. And then my relationship with the competition became tumultuous for me personally, and also conceptually for other reasons that we can talk about later. But this is a summary of everything, that how it went. And how was it for you? I think you've been the Jack and Jill since the very beginning, no?
Yes. One of the reasons why I actually asked you this question is because I know that both of us have had a very, very different journey in Jack and Jill. So this conversation is going to be very interesting because I was part of the first mock competition. Even before the first official competition, which was held in Brisbane, the week before, we did a trial, just a little practice run in Malaysia. And yes, I was very much there from before, when it was conceptualized, when it was proposed. And back then, the idea was to actually help the community to create this other opportunity for those people who like to compete, as well as to maybe have a general way of how we dance Zouk that can be danced anywhere in the world. And let me explain, because I'm not trying to say that Brazilian Zouk Dance Council and Jack and Jill was created to standardize and to make it one dance. But back then, before Jack and Jill's and Brazilian Zouk Dance Council was a thing, it was really, really difficult to travel and dance with people from other places. It was almost impossible because there wasn't a common dance that everybody learned. Basically, there were so many teachers from everywhere in the world, and I think maybe for branding purposes, everybody had their own brand and their own lateral, their own bonus, their own head movement technique. And it's not like today when you think it's different. Before, it was almost unrecognizable one to the other. So the Brazilian Zouk Dance Council and the Jack and Jill was trying to think about this idea. Well, if we all dance the same dance in the competition, at least in that place, we can then assess what is the best social dancer for competition. But very specifically saying here, not the best social dancer in any case. Because even though I have been part of the Brazilian Zouk Dance Council from before the beginning, I do believe that it's not for everybody. I was talking to Guy before we started recording, and we were discussing about Jack and Jill. And the way I see Jack and Jill is very much compared to people who like to compete in marathons, or not necessarily compete, but do marathons, or compete in CrossFit, or compete in any sort of activity, right? There are people who love to have a healthy lifestyle. They go for runs, they work out, they have good, healthy eating habits and all of those things. But it's not for anybody, for any competition, or to prove to anybody that they are doing. Those are the social dancers that I think that are amazing across the world that don't compete. They are doing it because it makes them feel good about it, makes them have more fun at it. But then there are people who like to have a goal. They like to have a milestone. They like to have something that helps them push themselves, right? So I think Jack and Jill falls into that category. And in that sense, I love Jack and Jill's. My journey in Jack and Jill has been very much like a roller coaster, but because of my own personal issues with my confidence, with my anxiety, with how I connect with my dancing, which we have spoken about a lot about in other episodes. But to me, it was never the Jack and Jill. It was just more me with my dancing and with my journey. But for me, Jack and Jill was always a nice place for me to see how well am I doing emotionally? How well am I doing under pressure when I know that there's a lot of people out there? There's only 90 seconds, maybe 2 minutes. There's a partner that I haven't danced with for months and months and months. Because yes, I'm in the All-Stars division where you think, well, everybody's a teacher, everybody's amazing. Absolutely, everybody's amazing. But sometimes we haven't danced with each other for 9, 12 months or ever. So we still have that unknown factor that you have in other levels. So in summary, I love it. I think it's really good for those people who like to have those check assessments or milestones. But if you're joining it because of peer pressure, community pressure, or because you've been told or you believe that if you don't have a certain level of Jack and Jill or points in Jack and Jill, then you're not a good enough dancer, I don't think that's true. I absolutely don't think that's true. There are so many amazing dancers out there that don't compete or have competed but don't really care about it. And I love dancing with them, and a lot of people love dancing with them.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Now, when you said like the peer pressure or community pressure, it's fascinating to me when I ask people why they're competing. And many times the answers are, because I think I have to, I don't know, I'm just doing it. Sometimes people don't connect really well with why exactly they are competing or have a hard time admitting this reason. For me, it's very much a matter of you see people competing and you see what happens when the results are good for the people who got first, second, third, fourth. And part of you wants to feel that. Part of you wants to be a part of that. So you're also pulled, I think, for the need to belong, the need to be recognized, the need to be seen, which are very basic human needs that everybody has. And Jack and Jill provides a very objectively verifiable way for you to get all these things. So it's a very, in the language nonviolent communication, it's a very viable strategy for you to meet certain needs. And then sometimes you just do it. The thing though is when someone goes in knowing all these things we're talking about, they know it's not a measure of their dance. They know it's a very specific setting, it's a very specific thing, but they still feel all the feels when they don't have a good result. They still feel really bad, which is my case. I know, although I know all these things, I was feeling really bad. There was a invitational one that I did in Taiwan last year, in which I placed last. It was an invitational one. It was really chill, but I placed last. And when I saw that I placed last, my emotions, like everything changed suddenly. I went to like a very dark, deep place. And I started thinking, I suck. I'm not good. I don't know what I'm doing. And I started messaging the other teachers to sort of help me. I even messaged the follower that danced with me saying, I'm sorry. It was Irene, I danced with Irene and I messaged Irene and said, Irene, I'm sorry. It was not very good. And she was really lovely, really kind and said she had a good time. It was good, it was fun. So she calmed me down and was in a mindset of let's just have fun. But I felt that so deeply. And I messaged the other teachers and I got some really interesting answers really about specific settings of Jack and Jill in regards to advanced, invitational, or all-star, in which there was a recognition of the pressure that exists to dance in a certain way, to perform in a certain way. And then I asked one of them, is my dance enough for Jack and Jill? And they said, it's good to watch, but not to win. They said with these words. So for me, it was almost like a confirmation that yes, Jack and Jill is no longer a social dance competition. I think it's a improvised performance competition in my point of view. So that's like conceptually what I started seeing. An improvised performance competition after a certain level, maybe in the novice divisions, intermediate divisions, we are still really dealing with social dancing. At the advanced level, all-star level, champions level, there is almost like an expectation from the public and from those who are dancing to dance in a certain way. I remember feeling almost like bored because the dance of an all-star was too simple. Like too simple with all the air quotes and like, what is it that I'm feeling? No. And then I snapped myself out of it because I didn't want to give in. And I noticed the person dancing, the couple dancing, there was almost like a sense of anxiety, of desperation to do something really cool, really impressive every single time and hit all the things of the song and knowing almost like the search for these moments and when it didn't work and the glitches when it didn't work. So sometimes like Alisson was saying even the all-star division that everybody's amazing, but they haven't danced in a long time. Sometimes we see most glitches in the higher divisions because they are both trying things, you know? So that's the interesting thing. And I realized that in order for me to go back to Jack and Jill and start doing this competition again, I need to really work this part emotionally to realize, okay, I have my dance that I social dance. Amazing. That one is super nice. I need to modify it a little bit to introduce certain moments, certain effects. So then I can go to Jack and Jill and I can feel confident because everybody can tell me it's good enough. You can go, just go, do what you do in the social in the Jack and Jill. But I don't feel confident yet. So it's a internal process that needs to happen, you know. It's a matter, I think, of recognizing it, and if needed, take a step away to recalibrate and then go again. Yeah. What do you think?
It's very interesting because I've had comment about my dancing multiple times by other judges when they said that in the all skate, I dance 10 times better than in the spotlight. For those of you who are not familiar with Jack and Jill, after a spotlight competition, which means each couple dances at the time, so they're all dancing separately, there is a moment where all of the couples are on the same floor dancing at the same time. So that's the all skate at the end of most of the times Advanced and All Stars Champions. And I realized that it was because at that moment, I was just at the party. Felt like I was just at a party. I was just having fun. And multiple times judges would tell me, if you can dance like you dance in the all skate, but in your spotlight, you'd be placing higher. But at that time, when I'm dancing in the spotlight, the only way that I find to enjoy and feel peaceful about Jack and Jill is to not imagine that anybody's in the room. Just to think, it's me, my partner, and the music. That is it. And yes, just like Yugi, I lose some points that I could win because I'm not entertaining, because I'm not performing. I am dancing with my partner. But that's my choice. That's how I choose to continue. I like Jack and Jill. I am now in a place that I can do Jack and Jill's. Yeah, sometimes feel a little bit, I could have done better. Or if the results don't match my expectations, I'll go like, oh, okay, I see it. But I can feel more detached in a healthy way to continue. But in the end of the day, for me, it's very much like the dance is me and my partner. And if it happens that the judges enjoy it and they want to give me points to rank myself into the top 3 or whatever, great. If they don't, I have no issues with it. I'm in a good mental place for that. But I know that this is not the same for everybody. We've had a lot of students over the years who came to us and said that they would stop going to classes. They would stop pretty much everything after a Jack and Jill competition. So like they were happy with their dancing. They were coming to classes. They were going to socials and dancing with everybody. And then one or maybe a few Jack and Jill competitions later, they just felt like, that's it, I'm quitting. So that's where we need to be very, very careful for those who are competing, for those who are teaching, for those who are judging, to really help and educate people that Jack and Jill is one of the ways that your dance can be assessed. Mm-hmm. It is not the international worldwide organization of levels in Brazilian Zouk. It is not. Okay, so if anybody says that if you're not good in Jack and Jill, you're not a good dancer, don't listen to them. I don't think that's correct. You can be a great teacher and not a great social dancer. You can be a great social dancer and not a great teacher. You can be a great performer and not a great teacher and not a great social dancer. There's so many ways that you can be great in this community. And Jack and Jill is one of them.
Yeah. Jack and Jill, in the end of the day, it fills a gap. Jack and Jill fills a gap and molds itself into the way that society runs, in the sense that you have a very clear way to know where you are, basically. You receive a label. You are either novice, intermediate, advanced, all-star, champion. So there's a label. That label has meaning attached to it. It means that you gain some points and you have certain experience and you are approved by this group of people here who are the people who are the experts, the reference points. So it gives you a goal. It gives you some level of certainty of where you are. For many years, we knew our level based on feeling, based on observation for the longest time, because Jack and Jill is something that has, 10 years, 20 years, 10 years.
7 years now.
7 years. For the longest time, we knew we were advanced because somebody would tell us, because we realized that we knew this many things. Now, Jack and Jill provides you a way to know when you are advanced. But the meanings that are attached to being advanced in Jack and Jill doesn't mean that you are this thing in all the other aspects of social dancing. You are an advanced in Jack and Jill. It means that you accumulated enough points to get to advance. And to be fair, to accumulate enough points to be advanced, you have to have a certain quality of this. And in Taiwan, Alisson, when we were there right before the Zouk Festival, there were like a training for Jack and Jill in your team. Mateus did 2 Jack and Jill trainings. I watched people training Jack and Jill on their own. And it's funny because Jack and Jill is a form of external validation. It's someone else telling you, you're good. Someone else telling you, yes, you did this really well. But they don't feel how it is. They just see how it is. And there is value to that because I was invited to watch 3 of these trainings. I was watching Alisson's one, I watched one of Mateus and one of the group. And I was invited to give my opinion in all 3 of them. And when I tap into this idea of observing the technique, observing what people are doing, we can still find a lot of interesting things to tell people so they can improve. They can improve their timing, they can improve head movement, they can improve body movements. We can have like a very nice list of things that if people work on, it's gonna have a good impact and will have an impact on how the dance feels. Because if somebody has a good timing, they can slow down, better head movement, it's gonna feel more comfortable, it's gonna be safer. So there is a lot of value that I think attached to this external validation as somebody else watching you dance and saying, this is good, this is not good, work on this, work on that. But like we have been saying here, is not the only measure. And I think what the scene could use too is a way to provide people with something that measures the other thing that we cannot see, but we can only feel. Like in Jaime Arocha back in the day, we had a way we would dance with 3 people, and these 3 people would basically rank us in certain qualities. And it was like musicality, floor craft, and there was comfort. Comfort was one of the things they would rank us. And I remember feeling really excited about this day because I would know how it feels like to dance with me and give them like an idea. And I had a goal. The maximum points were 21. For some reason, 7 was the highest rank someone could give. And I had a goal, get 21 in comfort. If there was something more related to how it looks like, I did not care at all for that, for the scoring of that or how it looked like. I was only working on the scoring of how it felt like. I think it's a gap that exists now that Jack and Jill became so big and so meaningful. If we can fill that gap, I think we could provide more ways for people to know where they are in their dance.
Another way you can look into it is, for example, some people are advanced in this city, in this community, but then they go to another community, they're a beginner in comparison to.
Yes.
So you can be a great advanced social dancer, can dance with everybody at the social, and then you go to Jack and Jill and you don't even make it past the first round. And then you're like, what? I thought I was a good dancer. Yes, you may be, but maybe not under pressure with 90 seconds, 10 judges staring at you, people screaming, and lots of cameras around you. Maybe,
staring at you, blank-faced.
And in my case, with a big frown here because I have a scar. Okay, people, let's make that clear. I have a scar here that I got when I was a very young kid dancing in the bathroom and I hit my head on the sink and I have a scar. So people think that I'm just very angry all the time, but it's not. It's just a little scar. Anyway, maybe Botox will fix it one day. But yeah, like you can be a great Jack and Jill dancer, winning all the points, getting first places everywhere. But then on the social, people don't like dancing with you. Maybe you're not comfortable. Maybe you're not adaptable. Maybe you're not the kind of person that people actually feel the most connection with. Like, we are all different. And we all love different things, and we all desire different things, and we all strive for different things. So, yes, Jack and Jill is one of them. But in the end of the day, I think that you should be working towards what makes you happy, not what your friend says or your teacher says or a judge says. I take all of those things into consideration and I put them on the table. And before all of this, I have my own reason for dancing. My reasons for dancing are here. Now, this feedback goes in line with my reasons for dancing. This one does, that one doesn't, that one doesn't. And if I don't know how to make that assessment, I will ask other people. I will ask Guy, I'll ask a friend, I'll ask a master and tell them, this is what I want for my dancing. This is the feedback that I got. What should I do with this? And how do I align all of this to make sure that I'm happy, but that I'm still progressing, that I feel like I'm still challenged without really feeling discouraged and feeling like I don't belong here or this is not for me. You know, all of us need help. Sometimes we go to the doctor, sometimes we go to the therapist, sometimes we go to a physical coach. In dance, you can also get that kind of help from a teacher that you trust, that has the experience to give you that advice. So I do recommend people to look for that.
Yeah, because I think in the end, we want to belong. We really want to belong and to be seen and to be recognized. And Jack and Jill does provide a way for us to get all these things. You know, it's a powerful tool. And the recognition sometimes that comes from social dancing only doesn't come as quickly. It comes over time and one person at a time. You know, and so sometimes I think it's important for us to be patient as well with the process. We are dealing with a partner dance who, by definition, it was not designed around competing. It was designed about the fact that it's a social activity. And it's very funny because lambada back in the day, in the 90s, there was a lot of lambada competitions. And the criteria was very interesting. There was some lambada competitions that the criteria was you cannot open. You have to stay together the whole time. If you open, you are disqualified, you know? So there was like endurance ones, like how long can you keep going? So there are like all these different ones. In Samba de Gafieira, there was competitions as well. There was like Samba Rio or something. I don't remember the name of the competitions in Rio, and they exist, but they are sort of like something that comes on top as a complement of the social dancing. My only concern is that competing in Jack and Jill becomes so powerful that starts to overrun the social dancing spirit of the dance, you know? And Alisson, I want to ask because there is some doubt that happens in the Jack and Jill scoring or judging. What does that no or yes mean in the prelims? What does that mean?
All right, let me explain to you guys if you don't know this. Basically, that's not a yes or no, or if you get a 10, does not mean the judges gave you 10 or the judges gave you 0 or they gave you 4.3. That's not how the scoring is done. That's how the scoring system shows it to you, because the scoring system is based on relative placement scoring. Okay, if you don't know what that is, please look it up. It's very, very complex. But it is a very fair way to compare everybody. Now, the way the judges score in their sheet is based on decimals, from 0 to 100 or from 0 to 10. We normally recommend judges to score from 0 to 100 so they have more numbers to play with. So I don't know what number is going to show in your paper based on my score. Okay, let's say I have 30 people. Some are going to be 71, 72, 83, 87, 62, 93. Like, they're going to be all of these numbers. At the end of the round, as a judge, I need to pick the top 10 scores that I gave. At that point, I don't even know the person anymore. I'm not looking at their names. I'm not looking at the bibs number. I'm just simply looking at, okay, who is 90s? Okay. Who is 80s? Who is 70s? Okay, cool. So first, if I have to select 12, sometimes I already have 12 before I get to the 70s. So everybody below gets a 0. Okay, so basically, everybody who made it gets a 10. And then in between that, we have the alternates, which is, for example, if I have to choose 12 to go to the next round, I have to choose 2 alternates, and they're going to be the 13 and 14. Sometimes I have to choose 4 alternates because the competition is too big. 13, 14, 15, 16. And that's based on the score that I already gave, not based on me seeing you and saying, okay, you're a 10, you're a 0, or you're 4.3. Because those broken numbers are the alternates. So if you got like a 3 point something, 4 point something, 5 point something, it means you're alternate 1 or 2 or 3 or 4. Okay. So when you're looking at the semifinals scoring sheets and you see 0, 10, 0, 10, please don't send threats to the judges because they didn't give you a 0. What it means is that your score was not high enough to make the cut of how many people they had to cut. And that's why it shows a 0. That should be seen as yes, no, alternate. That judge gave you yes, or that's a 10, which means you made it in the top ranking of their scores. And the other one is a 0, which means you didn't make it. And the alternate, which means you almost made it, but it wasn't enough because they had to cut at 12. If they had to cut at 15th, you'd have made it. You'd have gotten a 10. Okay, so it's not personal scoring because the personal scoring, nobody gets to see. Only the judges. Only the judges get to see. Even on the finals, when you see 1, 3, 8, 10, 9, that's not what the judges did. That means you are first out of all of the people that they scored. You're second out of all of the people that scored. Maybe the last person in my list is the first because they got a 92 in my scoring. So the numbers that you get to see there are never the numbers that the judges gave to you in terms of scoring. That's, I think, a very important clarification.
So the no just means that the person is below the cut.
Below the alternate. So below the cut and below the alternate.
Below the alternates, yeah.
Okay, so if I have to pass 12 and 2 alternates, 13, 14th is alternate, 15th and below, it's a no, so you get a 0. But I didn't give you a 0. Maybe I gave you an 87, but there were people above you. So maybe you did get a good score for me, but the score was not enough to make the cut. It doesn't mean you got a 50. It doesn't mean you got a 0.
Yeah, I think that's really important to know because sometimes people associate that no or that 0 with, oh, I got 0 score, or no, they said no to me. I'm not good. So it just means that you were below the cuts, the 12, the 15, the alternates, all that stuff.
Yes, Key, that's right. And that's also something that the Zouk Council has made an improvement on the scoring sheet that is released to the public. So if you go to the prelims or the semifinals, now at the bottom of the score sheet that we post on Facebook, on social media, or print and post on the wall, it says there, score legend, 10 equals callback. So yes, 4.5, alternate 1, 4.3, alternate 2, 0, callback equals no. So it's not the score that the judges gave you. It's just a label that the system gives because you didn't make enough points based on that judge's judging and criteria. So I hope that this will be clearer over the coming years because I know this was not there for the longest time. So it's something new and hopefully people will not feel that bad about the zeros anymore because the zeros don't mean that you're a bad dancer. It just means that you didn't make the cut.
Yeah. That's good. That's very good to know because I think there's a lot of associations that people make. And sometimes it's very automatic. They see and it just like hits very strongly until the person processes that it's not that. So knowing this information beforehand, before coming in, could be really useful for you when you see the results and you see the no or the 0. You don't associate it as, oh my God, I suck balls, So you're just understanding how the process works.
So in conclusion, for me, Jack and Jill is something that is very valid for those people who are looking for that type of challenge. It's not Brazilian Zouk certification or qualification of any sorts. If you made it to intermediate, it doesn't mean you can be a teacher. If you made it to advanced or all stars, it doesn't mean you can be a teacher, or it doesn't mean you're an amazing dancer. It means that you are trained enough on the things that the competition values, and that may align with what you think social dancing is or not. Some people think that social dancing and Jack and Jill has zero difference. Other people think that it's completely opposites. And that's a spectrum that you can be somewhere in between.
Yeah, it's a very fair. The thing that I'm always fascinated about or interested in is sometimes the unknown or unintentional effects that this competition, or actually any competition, has overall in the scene, because there is the intentions. There are the intentions, the mindful intentions about the competition and what is it for, what does it serve, who is it for, and so on. And there is how people take it, and that's the part that is very hard to control. I think it's not possible to control at all. The fact that when people watch the Jack and Jill competition, they watch the first places and they see their dance, an association is made in the minds of that dance as being the good dance, as being the cool dance. Even though you know that that's a specific setting for a specific thing, you still make that association. So at a subconscious level, when you go out and you social dance, there are aspects of that imagery coming into your body and coming out in your movements. And that's how I think that the growth of Jack and Jill, it splashes into the social dancing. So many times I go to places and I hear something really similar. Social dancing feels different. Why do you think? Oh, I think it's because of Jack and Jill. And I say, how do you feel that? I ask, how do you feel that? And people say, people are leading more movements that are bigger. They are really, really hitting the one no matter what. So I think that subconscious effect of the Jack and Jill is so much a reality. And for the people that Alisson says that think that Jack and Jill is something completely different from social dancing, they are the ones that tend to struggle the most. I have talked to people who started dancing in 2017, 2016, 2018, that find themselves having a hard time connecting with the scene, with the socials more recently. And I ask, why do you think so? And they say, oh, I think it's because of the competitions and the effects that it's having on people. And simply because people are taking less time to do less things and going straight to things that are, doing more things. And it's so interesting because when we travel now, the scenes vary so much. And in certain places, I don't notice anything at all. Social dancing there is still great and amazing. Whereas some other places, I do notice something. And it's very hard to pinpoint, but there is a slight different experience and sometimes a fairly big difference when I dance with the followers in certain places that maybe the people there are more competition focused. I don't know if you noticed that at all, Alisson, but sometimes I notice that and it's really hard to explain exactly what's going on, but there's something going on. I just don't know what it is.
Yes, but maybe, but sometimes, but more or less, and not really. Because here's the thing. I'm going to speak for two communities that I feel that I'm very close to, and you are as well. And we can attest that DC community and Taipei community, they are very passionate about training and even about competing in Jack and Jill. But it doesn't feel that way when you social dance, right?
No.
There are communities out there that you think, okay, is this a Jack and Jill competition, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I don't know what's happening in that community on a daily basis. So that's why I'm talking about DC and Taipei, because they train for Jack and Jill a lot. But it just doesn't feel that way because they also train in classes. They also social dance as much as possible with as many people as possible. So I can use those two communities as an example of the counter argument that Jack and Jill is not good for your community. Because I think it really depends on more elements. If the entire community is based on Jack and Jill competitions and people trying to get points, I get it. I see the point. Because that's not inclusive, that's not welcoming, it doesn't make the community grow, all of those things. But when you have a community that is so focused on growth, on quality, on comfort, on inclusivity, like DC and Taipei are, and we say that because we know this communities very deeply, then Jack and Jill is just one of the things.
Exactly. I think that's a very fair point. It comes back to the thing you mentioned in the technique episodes, that the influence of the teacher and how they present technique, the difference between technique and precision that we talked about there, is very similar here, with the competition being one of the many things that are available for the people. They can choose. For such a long time here in DC, we had the diehard group of people that travel and does all the things, but you will not see the majority of the scene here because they stay here. There is enough classes, enough weekenders, enough socials. It's almost like we got it. We don't need to go too much. We don't need to travel too much. So the variety of offerings, the variety of teachings, I think helps people fill all the gaps that they might have. And I agree with you. If for some reason a whole place pivots completely into competition, for example, yes, we could see the effects of that on the floor, on the social dancing floor. But in the communities that we are mostly close to, when people compete to Jack and Jill, I think they can make the separation, and that doesn't affect the floor. It affects, I think, in a way that we are just able to do cooler things, more tricky stuff, and have fun with it. Use it almost like a toy. We have all these different toys that we can play with, and we just keep playing. It just becomes more things that we can play with. And I think that's really amazing.
And for a long time, the students in DC have been doing great in competitions here in North America. But how often do we actually do Jack and Jill training? Maybe once or twice a year. We have a weekender or maybe a 3 hours boot camp once a year, at most 2 times a year, where we do a Jack and Jill training. And usually it's a very basic explaining of the rules, explaining of how it works and what to expect on the day. We're not out here in DC doing nightly Jack and Jill training competitions, spotlights and judging and doing all of those things. What we're doing here is technique work, social dancing work, connection work, and working on everything that makes a great social dancer, in our opinion. So if you're out there as a student or as a teacher, event organizer, and you have that interest on elevating the level of Jack and Jill in your community, if that's a very strong purpose for you, I would say to not actually invest on Jack and Jill training, but invest on social dancing training, adaptability training, consistent technique that people can do and everybody can do and everybody can understand, instead of those 3 people can dance with each other, they cannot dance with the rest, because that's not what we believe that makes a great social dancer. And clearly in the Jack and Jill results, that's not what is succeeding, because great social dancers are doing well in Jack and Jill. Of course, like we said before, there is a limit of how much you can get to in Jack and Jill if you're only training the social dancing at the party there, that aspect, which is what we focus on. There's the next level, which is more performance, more impact, more about the energy, about the interaction and the playfulness, which is something that we don't focus on. And I think those communities that are having issues are the ones who are focusing on that. They're focusing on the impact, on the big movements, on the crazy techniques, instead of focusing on the base.
Yeah, I think you start with the social dancing, and then to go into the Jack and Jill, you add that layer in which you are going to be talking about the performance aspect of it. I remember in all of the trainings that I took part, that I watched, that I participated, there was people were talking about how are people interacting with each other, the direction that they were doing the moves. So it's more intention. You do things more intentional, and there's almost like this aspect of theater, of game, of play with your partner that you want everybody to see because you want to entertain. And that's something that gotta be trained. It's not something that not everybody has that. I certainly don't have that unless I am in a flow on the social floor. I'm in a flow and flow, and then it comes out.
For example, sometimes I can be funny. I can say things that make people laugh, but I would never step up on the stage and try to be a stand-up comedian because that's a whole different game. It's not being funny because something happened. It's being funny because you know how to be funny and how to use it, the audience, the location. It's so much training. So you can be a very funny person. That doesn't mean you can just go onto the stage and be a stand-up comedian. Same as Jack and Jill, or maybe not same, okay? Let's say similar in terms of you can be a great social dancer, but that doesn't mean when you go to a competition and there's a spotlight competition, you're going to do well. Or even in a all-skate competition, you're going to do well. I think what we want in this episode is really to make this clear. Make it clear that there are so many aspects to dancing. There are so many aspects to competition. There are positives on all of them, and there are negatives on all of them. Okay? As long as you understand what you want with your dancing, as long as you understand what makes you happy, you can be happy as a hardcore Jack and Jill fanatic. You can still be happy. Or you can be very upset as a social dancer who doesn't like competition. There is happiness and there's sadness in Jack and Jill. There's happiness and there's sadness in regular social dancing. So it's not one or the other that is good for the community. I think it's how we approach it and how we build it and how we come together to do that one thing.
Yeah. This reminds me so much of like cooking competitions when sometimes they would come like this person, this grandmother, this father, this mother who cooks these things that everybody loves. My children love this thing. My family loves this stuff. And then they go to the judges. First, the judges are looking at their technique and they are cutting onion with like a bread knife. And they're like, already, what is that technique there? And then before cooking the chicken, they're still putting lemon in the chicken, something that we don't do anymore. So the judges are not only going to taste, but they're looking at the process that you're cooking. And they're assessing your technique to cook, how you do it. And then the person comes all proud of their dish that everybody in their family loves. And the judges says, too much salt, it's too watery, blah, blah. And you see the person crushing because that dish that everybody in their family loves, they said is not good enough for that competition over there. And Alisson said the same thing. When you are a funny person, it doesn't mean that you can go and do a stand-up comedy show, because I did a stand-up comedy course and everything is planned. You script, you plan the punchline, you create anticipation in your audience. A stand-up comedy show is a performance. So like if you are funny on the flow of living, for you to transform that into like a stand-up comedy show, you have to actually sit down, write everything, and try so many times, rehearse so many times, so everything works. I love this analogy that you made, Alisson, because it helped me to visualize even more, and I think it will help more people that are listening and watching to visualize as well this aspect. Yeah. And one last thing I wanted to mention was something that has come to me a couple times. People that have trained comfort for so many years, wanting to do Jack and Jill. They start doing Jack and Jill, and for some reason they don't place. They keep not placing. And two of these people have come to me like, I've trained comfort so much. I think I'm comfortable, but I cannot progress in Jack and Jill. Did I waste my time training comfort? And I say to these people, not at all. If you want to be a master of all things, you train the comforts and you are good with this. People like dancing, social dance with you. Now it's time to train something else. It's just a different training that you're going to do. So if you want to be a master of comfort and a master of performance, amazing. Go there, man.
Very possible.
Very possible. But you didn't waste your time. Not at all. Please, if you are anyone that are listening, that think about the way you learned and what you focused on was wasted time, because you are not progressing Jack and Jill, it's not a happy story to tell yourself. Yes, every knowledge that you acquired came into your body and is part of your story and lead you to where you are right now. Yeah, so it's not at all a waste of time. Just wanted to say that before we end because it's important.
That is very important. And what a better way to finish this episode than with a big hug from Guy, giving you a nice big hug from afar, saying you are great and everything is fine. Okay. So I think that's a great way. I'm not going to try to top that. I know this is what it's meant to be. So thank you guys for being here with us once again. And please keep in touch with us in our personal social media, but also in the Zouk Nerds channels on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok, and Spotify, and all of the things. And we'll see you on the next episode. So thank you. Beijos, abraços, and ciao, people.
Ciao, everyone. See you next time.